Now, pets live 10 to 15 years. Total locked-in value for the current market, it's almost $30 trillion. That's how much the current pet market will spend. No one in the digital realm knows they exist. Why aren't any of my pet's documents digital? There is no digital footprint for your pet. These industries are often ignored, right?
If it's already obvious, you're too late.
Whoever does it is going to be at the center of this massive economy.
You've reached Tobi and Brent. We'll get back to you.
Carlos, man, it has been so long going to have you on. Really excited to have you on today. Carlos, founder of Petastic and Animal. We've known each other for how long now?
Close to 2 years, I think. It's been quite the ride.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, and when you think about crypto and like all the different industries that like spans into, when we like first met, you know, it's you're one of these industries that when people think of crypto, they don't think of, oh, does it apply to this? But to me, it's like one of the biggest opportunities. And yeah, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we don't think of crypto for what it is. Like we think of it as infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And when, we've been a part of the pet industry, our team has, for over 10 years. And one of the biggest issues with the pet industry is that pets, they don't leave a digital footprint, right? We do as humans. And that's why we're so compatible with our digital world, is because we have a digital ID that we can log in and check our email. And we have digital credit cards that we can use our phone to pay.
Right.
But when it comes to our pets, no one in the digital realm knows they exist, right? Unless I communicate that to you. For instance, I have a dog. I'm actually allergic to cats. I have a 4-year-old Shih Tzu, 5-year-old. She just turned 5. And, she has qualities that are specific to her, right? But no one knows that. Now everyone here does, but
yeah,
the digital world doesn't. And when we were in our last business called PetNet, we were trying to create a pet network with hardware. Mm-hmm. One of the things that all our investors bought into, and our investors were Amazon, iRobot, Petco, industry leaders, was the fact that we were creating a digital footprint for pets, because one did not exist. Nestle Purina, who is our largest investor, our first investor in Petastic and Animal, for instance, they know they have 100 million customers. They know for a fact. And the only reason they know that is because they sell 100 million customers worth of food.
Exactly.
So they see the output in their factory and they say, we know we have that many customers. They don't know a single one of them. Right? Which forces them to sell into retail channels, because customers don't go to the Purina store. One doesn't exist.
Right.
They go into Walmart, they go into Target, they go to Chewy.
Yep.
Right. The retail channels. But all these companies, they want a direct relationship with the pet owner, because it's one of those things where if you can directly speak to the consumer, mm-hmm. you understand them better, you can sell them exactly what they need rather than guess. Right? Because most of these brands, they don't even know whether you're a cat owner or a dog owner. Right. You might watch a cat video on YouTube, and YouTube tags you as interested in cat because you think cat videos are funny, but you might be like me, who's allergic to cats. Right. Yeah. And I'm being delivered a cat product. Yeah. It's just completely inefficient.
Catnip. Yeah. And it's almost like, it's basically like 25 years ago, like pre-internet, with like TV ads where it's just like you're just getting served. Yeah. And that's me what's like been always really interesting is like, I've been like a pet and animal lover for like a long time. And when you think about just like the industry and like how, if you look at just even like dog food, a very basic example, golden retrievers, and then I think recently like French bulldogs are like mainly on the like cover, but you don't, if you're an owner, like my brother's a French bulldog owner, but like the dog food he buys is like a golden retriever, and like that's just like a small example, but it just shows like nothing, because they don't have like there's no way for these brands to connect directly with like with pet parents. Yeah. And I think especially when like we had met post the pandemic, like people don't really. I think people now are starting to understand more and more, but like pets, especially like in America, are basically family.
That's right.
I mean, they're treated the same for the most part. Like people will spend it's like if your kid gets sick, you will do whatever it takes to make sure they're healthy, to get them care. Same with pets.
Yep.
It's one of the few things in life that like people like really deeply emotionally care about, but people are not really served with the proper services, like the proper, you know, And so to me, it's just like, it's such a no brainer that like, how has this not existed?
Yeah. And it really, I think it has not existed because no one has had the experience that we've had as entrepreneurs building in the pet space, right? Because it's a super obvious thing. But if you haven't been there, then you don't know that it exists. Like I know the problem exists. And the problem is around identity, right? If we can identify each pet as individual and give each pet their own virtual diary of their life from the moment they were born to the moment they pass, then we've identified the whole life story in a form of data, in a digital form. And that's why crypto works, right? Because an identity needs to be immutable. It needs to be one of one, right?
Right.
So we create a pet passport that describes that pet as an individual, not as a dog, but as a golden retriever that is now a senior and has hip dysplasia.
Exactly.
Right. I just described a very common case that not only defines your pet for what they need to eat as far as the right protein, but the fact that they have an ailment that needs to be addressed through maybe pharmaceutical or veterinarian. All these things are pet care, right?
Yeah.
Two-sided market. You have the people, the consumers who pay for the products and services. On the other side, you have the products and services that are trying to deliver. We're effectively connecting those dots direct to consumer with blockchain, right? And that's why I say like we don't really think of our use case as like, oh wow, like this would be great on blockchain. The problem we were trying to solve is identity. It just so happens that identity is a great place to deploy.
Blockchain technology.
Exactly.
And I think when I first talked to you, which was even longer ago, I think.
Yeah.
And sorry for the DD process at that point.
Oh, no.
But you guys obviously came a long way, right? When we first talked and wrote one of the first checks in Petastic with the previous fund, you guys didn't have an animal layer on top of that, right? It was a very different business at the end of the day. You guys came a long way. And I never had a dog. Yeah. Right.
That's very obvious. Yeah.
I had a cat
in the back streets of Ubaramagal.
Yeah, we had some chickens.
Chickens.
I wouldn't say I'm as passionate about a pet as Brent.
Right.
It's easy to convince this guy.
Yes. Hey.
It took a little bit more time to convince me at that point. But what I didn't know, and this is quite interesting, maybe you can also give some numbers around this, is like how big this whole pet industry is, right? It's like not just from how many pets there are, like the money they spend, how difficult it is to get insurance. I mean, there's so many issues. It seems to me like such an inefficient market.
Yep. So
maybe you can share a bit of data on like the pet industry in general and how you went from Petastic to animal and this whole ecosystem you're building.
Yeah, we'll start with pets. This year, there will be a $300 billion spend. So that's how much money is going to be spent just for cats and dogs this year.
Is that US or is that?
That's worldwide.
Worldwide.
Now, pets live 10 to 15 years. So if you look at the total locked in value for the current market, it's almost $30 trillion. That's how much the current pet market will spend, assuming there's no apocalypse. Okay. It has to happen. And that market will continue to grow. If you now bring in other animal sectors, right? One animal sector is pet companion animals, right? That might include horses, right? The horse world is also huge. It's in the billions. It also has a locked in lifetime value because you have to care for the horse and you have to make sure it's well cared for, just like with cats and dogs. If you then look at cattle, you have protein, you have dairy, two huge industries that as humans we depend on. You look at sheep, right? Wool. All these are dependent on animals. So when you look at, as humans, we think of different aspects, right? We have to eat, right? We need companionship. We're all wearing clothes. All these industries, when you add them up, add up to about 30% of the global GDP. So when you look at it's not funny.
It's absurd. No, it's like it's absurd.
It's absurd.
Well, until I met you, I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
I was like, what?
And that's the thing. That's the thing. Like as humans, like every animal on Earth depends on us. Think about it. Whether it's your cat or your dog, or a tiger in some area of conservation.
Yeah,
humans are caring for all of them. right? So we have a hand in them, and that is such an important thing to understand in order to understand how big of an opportunity animal protocol is, right? Our go-to-market strategy is pet care. It's very relevant. We've been in the space for 10 years, but the overarching opportunity is all the animal industries, right? Which include everything from pet care, livestock, fish stock, bird stock, caring for horses, conservation region. And the list goes on. I just mentioned a few that kind of off the top of my
head. What was the example you gave me a couple weeks ago about hawks, like hawk conservation? And you were like, they have no problem raising money for raising money is one of the hardest things to do. And it's like, oh yeah, that's like easy. Like just as an example of an industry that like has,
like there's a lot of conservation efforts, and they're usually caring for a particular type of species like a hawk, or a region, right? And for all these organizations, what they do spend most of their time on is fundraising, so that they can fund these efforts. And a lot of these folks have, we've been doing BD for now 4 months to expand our ecosystem beyond pets.
Yeah.
And one of them was hawks. It was like, this person who wants to rescue hawks and care for them, bring them back into that ecosystem. And I was like, well, how can we help? Right. And it was like, well, we don't have problem fundraising. And I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. But it's true. It's like people care, right? And when you tell them like, hey, look, I want to care for these animals, make sure they're in the right environment, et cetera, people will provide money, right?
Absolutely.
And now how that money is deployed, that's another story. There's all these barriers to entry in terms of like restrictions on how you spend that money. Right. So for them, it's like we could not only help them raise the money, but create transparency around how that money is used, right? Yeah. So in pet care, it's one thing. It's around personalized pet care. For these conservation efforts, is really about creating transparency so the donors understand where the money's going.
Absolutely.
Right? And we can also put a face to the fundraising efforts, right? So rather than say, oh, we're raising money for this region, you could actually say, okay, Tony the tiger lives in this area, and he's going to help us. He can be the spokesperson. Yeah. Tony the tiger will have its own personality, its own pet ID. It's our animal ID on the network. So,
my God. Yeah.
Just one thing, because as an investor, right? I mean, and you have a lot of prominent names on the cap table, which is awesome. And every time and we recently invested with TBV, I go to people and say, oh, we've done a new investment. We invested in Petastic. And it's like, Petastic. And it's like, yeah, I mean, they're putting pets on chain, building a whole ecosystem around. It's like, it takes a little bit of time for them to get it, right? Because it's not like, oh, it's a Bitcoin layer 2, and they're like, okay, sure, I understand, right? Or it's like something like that. So like, and we just had a conversation before the podcast about, some people find a hook in your story, and that's what they're going after, right? Yep. Which is probably different for some investors, but just showing also a little bit like, what are these interesting hooks in the business that get people excited about it? And how do you kind of convey that message? Because it's a massive vision you're pitching here, right?
It's a massive vision, and it's as practical as this, right? When we think of these animal industries, we know they're enormous. We see the dogs and cats and chickens, the fish. We know they're there. No one
denies that,
right? We know they exist, but as investors, as token investors, you have no access to these markets, right? Let's imagine a world where you are a dog lover, Brent, and you wanted to invest in the dog industry.
I would. Where can I sign up?
He's a buyer. It can't be done. That's the issue, right? Meaning like you could invest in Chewy as a proxy to invest in the dog industry. But by doing so, you're also investing in hamsters, in reptiles and cats, which you hate, right? If you wanted to invest in dog, there's no way to do so.
Right.
So on animal, because we're tokenizing all these industries from pet to livestock to conservation, you can now actually invest in the dog industry and its performance. This is not a meme coin. The dog token, which is going to sit inside of animal protocol, the dog token is direct access to the performance of the dog industry. Okay. And let me tell you, the dog industry hasn't had a down year ever. The reason is dogs eat. They're not going to stop. Right. So no matter what, your investment is backed by the fact that they're hungry.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, right? And same goes for the cat industry, same goes for the horse industry. All these sectors have huge industries backing them. Our problem in our ecosystem is not demand side. It exists. It's just a matter of connecting those industries into our network, right? So you can be an investor in cat, an investor in dog, and all these investments are backed by the animal token, right? So as a token holder, now you're saying, oh, wow, this is interesting, because you're allowing entry into these markets that are direct to consumer, right? You can actually invest in the dog industry and its performance. To do so, you have to buy animal token. Animal token is the network token. So not only does it pay for the transactions and storage of all the data, but it's also the market maker into getting into these markets and investing. And that's the hook for a token holder. It answers the question, why would I want to hold animal token? It's because it's tapping into 30% of the world's GDP. That's why.
And I have a question, because I think for a lot of people it might be difficult to understand, because I mean, a lot of these industries are very legacy.
That's right.
It's like banking, right? Like they probably still use like written paper or whatever the hell they're doing, right? And it could be a little off.
No,
but,
you're right.
but just understanding, right? If like, let's say I have a cattle farm, right? And I want to work with you. Like, how would that work, right? From like onboarding, go to market. Let's go a little bit more in detail, because I think it's interesting for the audience to understand.
Yeah. So our ecosystem, we have the end users, right? The caregivers, like the pet owner, for instance. In the middle, our ecosystem is an SDK. It's for developers to build apps. So the first app is Petastic. So in order to address the cattle market, a developer has to create an app to address that market, right? It may be us, it may be someone we deliver or award a grant to. Someone has to create an app. Let's say the app is for the financing of the growth of a calf into a full-grown cow, right? That's the business. That's an industry within the cow world, right? I just found out, because I was pitching our protocol to developers and a hedge fund in Brazil, that between calf and full-grown cow is 18% return on investment, right? 6 months return on investment, right? So now imagine a hedge fund is going in and financing these cattle operations, and they're getting 18% yield in 6 months. It's a great investment. In our world, we could provide that investment vehicle to anyone, because we can now access that market, right? It's an inaccessible market. It's only accessible to this hedge fund who happens to understand that world really well. But if someone creates an app,
now that's the connection, right?
Now you have the connection, right? So that's one way, right? And you think about it, well, that's not the same as the pet care use case. It's not. It's different. It's microfinancing, right? What enables it is identity, right? So the protocol is this identity layer that provides developers the ability to create an app to address a market problem. That is the niche. So in order to get that going, my job is to expand the ecosystem beyond pet care. In pet care, there's so many use cases, right? Where there's selling pet food or selling pet insurance. I can go down the list. When it comes to livestock, bird stock, so many use cases. The horse world, so many use cases. In fact, one of the funnest ones is horse racing, right? So being able to now, bet on the ponies, it's huge, right?
It's massive.
And it's entertainment. It's not even about, you look at all these different industries we're tapping into. It's like all the way to entertainment. That's where we're going.
So if I understand this correct, you guys started with Petastic, right? Was kind of the flagship thing you guys did was an app, right? That did really well. Did really well. And then you realized this use case is so much bigger, but you cannot service it in one app.
That's right.
Right. And then Animal came along, which basically gives everyone an infrastructure and that token and this identity piece. So everybody, if I'm a developer, I can go on Animal tomorrow and be like, hey, I love the cattle industry. And I want to build a product for that runs on Animal. At the end of the day, right now, what you guys are focusing on is getting more apps building an Animal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right? Oddly enough, Animal was created so that we could build Petastic, right? The identity layer that Petastic runs on required Animal. And once we had animal built, we're like, oh, well, why don't other people use it? And that's how we started expanding.
Yeah.
But what we want to achieve long-term at scale is tokenize all these animal industries so that token investors can have access to these markets. We have a thriving economy of animal industries. But in order to achieve that, it starts with developers, right? Developers have to be inspired and have to be provided the tools to execute. And that's what Animal Protocol is. And we're going to announce a grant program to entice developers to develop on our platform. There's a lot of passionate people about, maybe not you, Tobi, but a lot of
it's not that I don't like grants. And right now also I have a girlfriend that stops at every single dog and touches them. And she, by the way, loves Petastic.
Yeah,
so I have to.
All right. So if you want to keep your girlfriend, no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the goal right now, is just expanding the ecosystem. You know, we think of success in our mission here it's all about inspiring innovators to build on top of animal, right?
Yeah.
We've built one use case. We're going to build a few. Our team is going to build a few, but our goal is to get developers across the planet to build stuff specific for them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the game.
Man, to me, it's so exciting. It just blows my mind that this hasn't been created before. And that's what kind of drives me nuts sometimes about investors, is that if it's, when people see something at first and they're like, that doesn't make sense, or like, oh, I can't see it. It's like, yeah, because things that become big is because it hasn't been done before.
That's right.
Like when Airbnb came around, people were like, no one's going to stay in someone's house. Like, that's crazy. Right. Like, I mean, like God, every like sure. big, like any company, and obviously like you still have like ways to go, but to me, it's just very, very obvious. But in like crypto in particular, when people think about animals, they think meme coins.
That's right.
Right. Which is like a whole nother, story. But I think everyone, especially like now, memes are obviously going to be here to stay in like some way, but there's a lot of rugging and there's a lot of high risk volatility.
Yeah.
When people think of animal and crypto, they think memes, high risk volatility.
Yep.
But the industries that you're talking about, these have been around forever. They're here to stay. They're here for the future. And especially what people don't, I think a lot of people don't realize is with the pandemic, that shift from the adoption rates, the amount of pets now that have just got adopted in the last like couple of years.
How many pets are there in the world?
Oh, it's
over 1 billion. Like, basically 1 in 8 people have at least one pet. That's the ratio. When it comes to animals, there's more animals than humans. So, excuse me, if you add up all animals, there's more animals than there are human beings. So it's just enormous. There's no stopping it. And is it obvious? It's obvious now, right? Look, like overnight success, like we started yesterday. No, we started 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Through 2 businesses, one that failed. There's been $100 million invested in what we are doing through hardware engineering, through communications, through now blockchain. Yeah. So it's I would say it's for us, it's become obvious.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's hard means we're on the right path. If it was easy, that means someone else would have done it already.
Correct.
We'd be copying someone. And I guarantee you, not only that someone will copy us, but other protocols that are touching the consumer will copy what we're trying to achieve in terms of tokenizing these sectors and creating access for investors to invest in these independent sectors.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Which means you're onto something.
I think so.
People only copy when, that's why like I've sometimes founders will be like, oh, I don't want people to steal my idea. And I'm like, no, it's actually good. Yeah, if no one's trying to do what you're doing, that's actually a bigger problem. It means that like no one there's no opportunity. And like pets, to me, it just blows my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult, but if we achieve what we're trying to do, and we will tap into the future of animal care, right? At some point, someone's got to say we're doing it and actually execute, right? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Just a matter of who and when. So it's us and now,
right?
In my opinion.
No, totally. And that's what, to me, like it was like a no-brainer from like just a consumer perspective, myself loving animals, of like with Petastic, like how even just like the dog industry, very simply, like when Petastic was originally started, where you have to have like your physical documents everywhere, and your insurance is like everywhere. And if you have to go get your dog's haircut, you have to like bring your vaccination. Like it's just, we're in 2025, like, and we still have to like do like these like manual like labor. Like it's just, it's crazy.
And that's the two-sided market, right? You're the consumer and you have this problem. Why aren't any of my pet's documents digital? Right?
It's absurd.
And by fixing that problem, you actually fix the fact that there is no digital footprint for your pet. So we fix your problem. At the same time, we fix the brand's problem to be able to find you, right? So now they know, Brent has a dog. These are the qualities that describe his dog. I'm going to sell him these things, and I'm going to be there for him when he requires veterinary service and whatnot.
But is it easy to understand what you're doing for the businesses like the cattle farm, like the pet insurance company? Are they getting it? Like, what is their sentiment towards this?
So far, they're getting it after we sit down, right? Like I would say the biggest challenge we have in doing BD is that we have no point of reference, right? Like we can't say we're the Uber for blah, blah, blah yet, right? Like we're creating the idea. So what's been happening is people will take our meetings, right? And they're like, oh, what do you do? And then 20 minutes later, they're like, oh crap, this is interesting, right? Because they get that we can solve a problem that they've been dealing with forever, right? Like when we went to Brazil and we talked to the cattle folks, one of the things their operators don't have insight is they don't have data on the ranch, right? They lose cows. Sometimes cows disappear for weeks and they come back. They thought they lost it. Oh, it's back, right? Like they have no, like that's the problem we're fixing for the operator, right? On the other side of the market, they all have second side of the market is financing. A lot of these operators, they don't want to put out the cash to feed the cow, or they can't, right? So they have to finance it. So they have to find financing to do all that because they just don't have one cow. Right? They have thousands.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to feed all those cows.
Right.
So they get it when you speak to them. So our biggest challenge is going to be, how do we simplify the messaging so that we could do this at scale? Right now, we're still at the inception where we are trying to understand the simplest message to deliver, right? We're at the beginning. And that's why you guys are here, because you guys are the believers, right? That invested in us, years ago. Exactly. He's an investor, and that's the type of messaging we're trying to get to. A one word simple message that people understand. But in order to get there, we have to explore. But so far, no one has said no. People are like, let's continue the conversation. Let's build something. Let's figure it out.
Well, how can like developers get involved? Like how can they like do that? Go to their website? Like what do they do?
So we have two websites. Petastic is the pet app that you guys described. The other one is animal.foundation. So animal.foundation is where we define the protocol. There will be documentation there for developers to get started. We'll be publishing that soon. So they'll be able to learn about what the SDK will provide. It'll provide them access to the identity layer, to other parts of the layers, including the marketplace, including a rewards mechanism to make sure that users are incentivized. Those are all part of the ecosystem. And then we're also going to have a grant program. So, it's hard to get projects started. Obviously, like it could be a passion project, or it could be something that you're trying to build a big business. So we want to make sure that people are have enough funding to get their project started. So those are the three big things, but they can do that at our website, submit an application. It will go through and award some funding to those that we find the most promising, that will provide the biggest impact to our protocol today. And we'll go from there.
Do you have any like numbers you can share, like on Petastic and Animal, like how many developers are there? Like,
so far, Petastic has enrolled almost 2 million domesticated cats and dogs in the United States. Quite a bit. A fraction of those are generating revenue.
Well, when you say have enrolled, like what does that exactly mean?
So we have verified their existence. So meaning, if you think of like WorldCoin, we have a protocol called KYP.
Know your pet.
You know your pet. And what we mean by that is that we've proven that your pet is real, not AI generated. That we understand its qualities, we understand what breed, et cetera, and we understand who the owner is. That's what KYP is, right? So about 2 million pets. In the United States, we started with shelters and rescues because ownership of the pets, it start at the top of the funnel, shelters and rescues. So those pets are now, a fraction of them are now generating revenue. What those folks are buying are pet supplies, food, etc. And a fraction of that revenue goes to the network. Okay, so the first app on top of the protocol, Petastic, is generating revenue for the network. In a way, we are our first developer. And in the last few months, we brought on 4 more developers. So now we're at 5 developers, 5 different apps. By the end of this quarter, we hope some of those apps will go live. And by summertime, we're looking at 20. We want to have 20 apps in the ecosystem. And as we create more throughput of data, which means more apps, more developers, that means we're on our path to a TGE, right? That's where we're headed into. We want to make sure that we have a thriving ecosystem where there's developer demand, where there's consumer demand, and where the transactions are creating value for the category tokens like cat and dog and horse, right? And that's when we go live with the token. So that's where we're headed. Right now, we have a small team of 6, but with our ecosystem, you could have hundreds of developers here by summertime.
Which is also insane that you guys have 6 people and build all of this.
That's right.
I remember we were in Miami sitting in your office and you had like 15 screens and like 8 computers, and I was like, okay, this guy's serious.
I'm a damn serious person. Let's just forget it. Mother Nature's on our side. Like we can't lose here. But we'd like to keep our teams small. Like building with large teams, in my experience, 20 years building an entrepreneur, creates a level of complexity that you don't want. Trust me. Because then you have to manage people, right? And then managing people means managing their feelings. And I just don't deal with feelings.
You're not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm a big dog dork. Cesar Milan, big fan of him. Hopefully meet him one day. But anyways, he's like, dogs are simple. Pets are simple to understand, train, like work with. He's like, humans are complex.
Oh my God.
Very complex. Yeah.
And guess who gets to be the HR department? Me. Like people are calling. I got yelled at. I'm like, I get yelled at all the time. I can't complain to someone.
Yeah.
It's just our team is small. It'll remain small, very experienced though.
Yeah.
So we're efficient in that respect. We have a small team, but we do the work of like 50, like in my, just the way it works.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the game.
Awesome, man. Well, I guess, before we kind of wrap, I guess any kind of like last like thoughts.
One thing I want to say, if you guys attended one of our events and there was a question, are you a pet owner? This is your guy.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's right. So you'll be hearing from me for sure. Final thoughts. I think it really is like innovation leads to change, right?
Yeah.
And in our experience in the pet industry and now animal industries as a whole, things haven't changed. Like you walk in and you're like, where are we? You feel like you went through a time machine. And the reason things haven't changed in these industries is because these industries are often ignored, right? Like Oracle's not down there at the cattle ranch selling.
No, of course. No, the amount of investors I've talked to you about too, they're like pets. Remember, that one company, they're like, well, pets and blockchain, we're just not really into that right now. And it's like, it gets me. It's like, if it's already obvious, you're too late.
It's too late. Yeah, you can't exactly. You have to be
with retail investors. It's like everything. Like by the time Coinbase went public, and retail's like, oh my God, we should get in there. They go public at $100 billion. Now they're worth over $10 billion now, or whatever. But it's just like, when it's obvious, it's too late.
Exactly, and that's the thing. My thought on all this is like, and I was asked this last year at East Denver. Like, if you were to change one thing about the pet industry, what would it be?
Yeah,
and I was like, everything. I mean, it's all screwed up. That would change the whole thing. No. So that's where I'm at with it. It needs to change. Whoever does it is going to be at the center of this massive economy. Mm-hmm. And we want that center to be our protocol, our community, our ecosystem,
right?
That you can be a part of. That's really it. That's the final thought. And that's where we're headed. So we want to change everything because it's not It's not well.
Dude, there's so many friction points you like mentioned, and yeah, for consumers, cattle ranch owners, horse owners. I mean, I go down like the list. So yeah, man, we're very excited to be on board. Yes, Tobi, anything else you want to add?
I'm a huge fan, even though I'm not a crazy dog person, but I'm getting there.
Well, you're gonna have to be.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be. With your, exactly. Like your
esposa. Yeah,
your esposa requires it. You gotta pet it. You gotta pet it.
Exactly.
Awesome, man.
Well, until next time, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah, and we'll get back to you.
Amazing.
Bye.